A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Well, those days on the calendar continue to pass. Christmas is not that far away, and often we're inspired by new resources that help our families to reflect the real meaning of Christmas, and especially for our children. Well, sometimes we're swept along by the Santa narrative and need to work hard to give the biblical narrative the highest priority. Well, a new children's book is out for families just before Christmas. It's called Christmas is Coming. Joe Hood leads the Mainly Ministries organisation here in Australia, and Joe's joining us. Hey, Joe, welcome back to 2020.
Hi. You're certainly right that Christmas is coming. I saw chocolates in Woolworths today.
Yes, I think chocolates and people will be thinking Christmas, and that's a nice thinking, I think, that we go through. Hey, the way Christians think about Santa Claus at Christmas, you've been giving this some thought. What have you been thinking about Christians and Santa Claus?
Well, I think it's an easy starting point because it's the known starting point for many families. They go along for the Santa photograph, either as a family or the children are participating in that. And it's very easy for that to be the main deal for children in terms of their thinking about the Christmas story. So it's a great starting point, but we certainly want to steer them in the direction of it being about Jesus' birth.
Well, I love what you've done, and a little bit like bridging the gap between what you say, is culturally dominant. Everybody has a starting point, and at least a lot of families, some families don't, but lots of families do. Santa is in the picture. And this divide between that culturally dominant idea of Santa and the reality of the biblical narrative, bridging the gap, something that you've been interested in.
Yes, it is. That's what Mainly Music is all about. It's about bridging the gap between the local church, the local community of faith, and their neighbourhood of families with preschoolers. And so writing a book that can be handed out to children and their families where the Jesus narrative is less dominant is such a privilege.
And you've been running your ministry now, and let's just touch on this for a moment. The milestones that you've gone through and all the interactions that you have through music and through playgroups over many years now, and it's led you to a point where you're actually trying to bridge this gap between that Santa Claus narrative and the biblical narrative.
Yes, I think we've done that for a number of years. Well, certainly the local groups have. Because it is, as you quite rightly pointed out before, it is the starting point for a lot of people when they're thinking about Christmas. So Mainly Music started, I'm actually the founder, and it started in New Zealand 35 years ago, and the first group started here in Australia in 25 years ago, and in the UK 20 years ago. So 2025 is a big year of celebration for Mainly Music in those three locations.
And as a Christian ministry, when Christmas rolls around, you're always dealing with the tensions here, aren't you?
Yes, you are. And those tensions provide opportunity.
Give us a description, blow by blow if you want to, and I know it's not complicated, but just the way your new book, Christmas is Coming, the way it unfolds and what parents could expect if they were listening in and having a thought about what your book will look like.
Sure. Well, it's about three cousins who anticipate the annual Christmas photograph with Santa. And on this particular occasion, they get talking and discussing with Santa about the real meaning and discover that he actually thinks Christmas is all about him. And so Mason, Riley and Felix, the three cousins, talked to him about how the shepherds heard about Jesus' birth and went rushing off to see this this saviour they had been anticipating, about how the men from the east came with gifts, and Riley points out they weren't particularly exciting gifts for children, for gold, frankincense and myrrh. They certainly weren't Legos and Barbies and trains and things like that. And then Santa makes the statement, oh my goodness, I thought Christmas was about me. And I think it's Felix in the story says, Christmas is all about Jesus. He's the reason that we celebrate at Christmas.
I wonder if you have ever met a Santa who has children coming and whispering in his ear, do you know, Christmas is all about Jesus. I wonder if that happens. Do you ever come across anyone?
No, I haven't heard of anybody around that, but I do know a Santa that he's just lost his job because the retail store has closed down in New Zealand. And he certainly enjoyed that process of hearing the aspirations of children. But I'm not sure whether he's had that particular conversation.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's quite an industry, the Santa industry, around Christmas time. And if you could sow a seed into the hearts and minds of children to whisper into Santa's ear, that might actually be a good positive.
It could be too.
So you've got three cousins anticipating a Christmas photo. And for every family that's got little ones oftentimes are hounding mum and dad to take them to the shopping centre to have their photo with Santa. So this is the sort of book that really connects with these children in a special way.
And it is actually designed for families where the Jesus narrative is less prominent in their thinking about this season. And so it's the sort of book that grandparents can buy and read to their grandchildren to bring the Christian narrative into their thinking and into their worldview.
Joe, what about local churches? And churches give prizes, usually perhaps a little closer to Christmas, but is this something that a local church could make a part of their ministry, their children's ministry this year, by getting this sort of resource into the hands of families?
Yes, they could, and particularly if they're not running Manny Music or Manny Play, it's the sort of gift that they could give to all the playgroup families if they were running a playgroup. Or if they had any other connections with families in their neighbourhood, maybe a childcare or a early learning centre. It's the sort of gift that could be quite strategic, putting into the hands of families where Santa is the higher priority in the Christmas thinking.
As you say, the Jesus narrative is not prominent in lots of families. You might even say that in so many Christian families that are a little bit more nominal, namely Christians not going to church all that often. The kids don't go to Sunday school, kids' church every week. So the Jesus narrative less prominent in families. And this being a very good way for families to be able to engage their children with the Christian faith. And they don't have to be sort of theological experts to do that.
No, they don't. And also families who are taking their children to church and reading Bible stories, for them to consider who they could buy a book like this for and give away as a evangelistic tool.
Okay, have you done a bit of a dry run? Has there been a road test? Do you have children or grandchildren, Joe, that have looked at your book and they've had a good positive reaction?
I certainly do, and guess what? They are grandchildren, and guess what their names are? Mason, Riley, and Felix. So, yes, they are real children, and Felix is depicted in the story as being slightly older. He's actually only 2 at this point. And I read him the story first, and he handed it back to me about 5 minutes later and said, "Again." So even at 2, it took his attention and took his interest, and we sat there and reread it.
Wonderful stuff. What a great family connection there is there, and you've got it road tested with your grandchildren. Hey, exciting stuff, Joe. 2025 next year, celebrating 35 years since the first group started, and you're the founder in New Zealand. That's 25 years you've been operating in Australia, 20 years in the UK. For people who are wondering what is Mainly Music and what is Mainly Playgroups, just give us a quick explanation.
Sure. Well, it is a place where joy comes about through music or story craft and a little bit of music, where people from the neighbourhood come into the church or into a building that the church occupies and find a community of belonging. It's a place where Jesus can be revealed through the volunteer team that make it happen week after week. And as an organisation, we count it a privilege to resource and support local communities of faith to make Mainly Music or Mainly Play happen. So that gives you a overview. It's 30 minutes plus a time afterwards of eating, playing and chatting. And it's a place that parents very often say, this is the highlight of my week. And we think that is because it is filled with joy, it is a community of belonging, and it is a place where Jesus is revealed.
Mainly Music and Mainly Play groups, and there is a website, mainlyministries.org, for people to get a hold of.
Mainlymusic.org would be the other one.
Oh, so there's mainlyministries.org and mainlymusic.org.
Yes, yeah.
And
so
to
communities of faith connect with us in Mainly Ministries, and local communities connect at mainlymusic.org.
And Joe, for people getting a hold of the book, is it available at online booksellers?
Well, it's available through mainlymusic.org. It can be bought online there.
Mainlymusic.org. Joe Hood leads Mainly Ministries here in Australia. Joe, thank you so much for sharing your new book with us today on 2020.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity to chat. Most appreciative.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.